The national championship game, Georgia versus Alabama. Seems like we've seen this a few times before. You know, the last time that Alabama was an underdog was 2015, and that was against Georgia. They ended up winning that game 38-10. They played each other 4 times under Kirby Smart, Alabama winning all 4 of them. But how about this one? Georgia's led in all 4 of those games, 3 of those games by double-digit points, and lost all 4 of them. Alabama is a 3-point dog in this game, and I don't know why. There's no way in the world I can give you stats, numbers, whatever, that I'm not taking Alabama. I'll even take the money line, just take Alabama straight up. They will find a way to win this game. Nick Saban is 26-1 against his former assistant coaches. This is the big game for all the marbles. Nick Saban's been there more times than anybody else. He knows how to get his team ready to play this. But I'm not going to tell you what the score is until later, but I'm just telling you, this is ridiculous that Alabama is an underdog.
I don't know how you can say that affirmative that Alabama's going to win the football game because there's so many intangibles. Yeah, you look at Bryce Young, 4,500 yards, 46 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. But let's give an awful lot of credit to Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator. I thought he would be a head coach this year, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way. I think that you look at the best running back on the field will be Robinson. 1,275 yards, 14 touchdowns, also an excellent receiver. You look at a wide receiver, Williams, 75 receptions, 1,507 yards. You just look at the 3 best players are all on Alabama's football team. I really wasn't a big Stetson Bennett fan. I felt that they could not win the big game with him at quarterback. Yeah, he's a wonderful quarterback, does wonderful things, great story, walk on, rose up to be but his performance against Michigan was outstanding. He's thrown 27 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. They have a good running game by committee, but both are great on offense. Alabama averages 41 points a game, almost 500 yards a game, and yet Georgia is averaging 39 points a game. But defense is where there's a big difference. You look at Alabama, they're giving up 20 points a game. Georgia only 9.5. Georgia had one close win versus Clemson in the opening game, 10-3. Other than that, their next closest game. Well, look at this, Mark. In 12 games, their next closest game was Kentucky, where they won 30-13. Now let's look at Alabama. Yeah, they are a great football team. They expect to win, but they are not infallible. They lost to A&M, 41-38. They beat Florida by 2. They beat LSU by 6. They beat Arkansas by 7. They beat Auburn in overtime. Now, Georgia has the best resume, but Mark, it's only a 1 game. It's a rematch. When you have a rematch, I sort of tend to go with the team that lost the first game because they'll make all kind of different adjustments, etc. But here's what it's going to come down to. Alabama believes they can win. They believe there's no way in this world they're going to lose to Georgia. I think the motivation is on Georgia's side, even though Alabama's an underdog, which is not used to being. But the question is Georgia going to find a way to win it at the end? As you mentioned, Mark, I remember the 2 games very vividly. They had a 2-digit lead, and they blew it in the last minute on both games. I think it was Tagovailoa came in and threw a pass where they had a mishap in the secondary, missed coverage. He hit the winning touchdown. So it's going to be a great game, but I am not convinced that Alabama is indestructible. I think Georgia's defense is going to rise up, and they're going to have to slow down the outstanding quarterback in Bryce Young, and Stetson Bennett's going to have a tremendous game.
You mean that Bryce Young, that quarterback that had 286 yards in the first half against this vaunted Georgia defense? You mean Bryce Young that had an offense of 536 yards? He had 421 yards passing. He had 40 yards rushing and 1 touchdown, the most rushing yards he's had. That's a new wrinkle for him to run the ball instead of just throw the ball all the time. That will take the defense off their heels because they don't expect him to run the ball. You mean this Alabama team that put up 41 points and beat this team 41-24, an Alabama team that was down by 10 points after the first quarter and outscored Georgia 41-14 the rest of the game? You think that team's going to rise up and beat the Alabama Crimson Tide in a big game and Nick Saban? Not a chance. Forget the 3 points. Take Bama. It'll be a close game down to the wire, but I got Bama winning this game, Coach, 34-27.
Oh, Mark, that first game was an exhibition game. It meant nothing. Yeah,
the championship.
It doesn't go to determine who's going to go into the playoffs on that. And when you look at it, I just think that there's going to come a time where Georgia's going to find a way to win this football game, and I think it's this time. Georgia 28, Alabama 26.
Whoa, you think Alabama's going to give Brock Bowers another chance to catch 10 passes against that defense? I don't think so. I think Will Anderson, their great linebacker, is going to have something to say about that. Don't forget about Henry To'o, the linebacker that has 105 tackles for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Nick Saban in big games always comes up with a different wrinkle that you haven't seen before. Maybe throwing it to the tight end, maybe a special teams on special teams, maybe something that Georgia hasn't seen before, but he always has something up his sleeve. Alabama wins this game outright. I'll bet you a case of Diet Coke on it.
Oh, I bet you got that, Mark. I made no mistake about it. But you're underestimating Kirby Smart's attitude. After they beat Michigan, he was supposed to be dumped with this mayonnaise to celebrate the win, and he refused to do it. And he probably disappointed some sponsors of the bowl game, but he said, this isn't the end of the line. The big one is Alabama. And I think they're going to be ready. Georgia's going to come out there with their hair on fire, Mark, and that's why I'm picking them to upset Alabama 28-26. I say upset even though they're a 3-point favorite because everybody expects Alabama to win.